As the final passengers disembarked from Continental Airlines Flight 237, CEO Warren Mitchell stared at the empty tarmac where 87 aircraft once stood. Just 24 hours ago, his twin daughters Zoe and Kendra had been publicly humiliated and refused boarding. Now, the billion-dollar airline was grounded indefinitely. Before I dive into this shocking story of power, prejudice, and justice, where are you watching from today? Take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated on more incredible true stories of people standing up against discrimination. Ready to discover how two teenage girls brought a massive airline to its knees? Let's get into it. 17-year-old twins Zoe and Kendra Mitchell bounced around their spacious bedroom, tossing clothes, books, and medical journals into matching navy blue suitcases. This wasn't just any trip. This was their first solo journey to attend the prestigious Johns Hopkins Summer Medical Program, a stepping stone toward their shared dream of becoming surgeons. "Do you think we packed enough scrubs?" Kendra asked, holding up a set of light blue medical attire. Her sister Zoe, 1 minute younger but often more cautious, double-checked their packing list for the third time. "2 sets each should be fine," Zoe replied, folding another pair of slacks. "Mom said they provide the rest at orientation." From the doorway, Warren Mitchell watched his daughters with a mixture of pride and concern. As the CEO of Mitchell.com, one of the country's largest telecommunications companies, Warren had provided his daughters with every advantage money could buy. But he knew all too well that his 8-figure bank account and corner office couldn't protect them from something far more insidious. "Girls," he said, entering the room and sitting on the edge of Kendra's bed, "we need to talk about what to expect while traveling." The twins exchanged knowing glances. They'd had this conversation before. "Dad, we know," Kendra said, her voice gentle but firm. "We've been black in America for 17 years. Warren nodded, his expression serious. "I know you know, but airport security, flight attendants, taxi drivers, they don't know who your father is. They don't see Zoe and Kendra Mitchell, daughters of Warren and Isabella Mitchell. They just see 2 black teenagers." Zoe finished his sentence. "We understand, Dad." Warren rubbed his temples, remembering the time just last month when, despite wearing a $5,000 suit and being featured on the cover of Business Weekly, he was followed by security throughout a high-end jewelry store while buying an anniversary gift for his wife. "Just remember what we taught you," he continued. "Be polite, but firm. Document everything. Know your rights. And call you if things get out of hand," Kendra added with a reassuring smile. Warren reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, sleek device that resembled a smartphone but with fewer buttons and a more robust case. "This is a direct line to me," he explained, handing the satellite phone to Zoe. "It works anywhere, bypasses regular networks. Use it only in a real emergency." The twins nodded solemnly, understanding the significance. Their father rarely pulled out his executive tools for family matters. "Promise me," Warren insisted. "We promise," they said in unison. Later that evening, as the twins continued packing, their mother Isabella entered the room. As one of the country's leading neurosurgeons, she balanced a demanding career with raising her daughters to be confident and prepared. "Your father's worried," she said, helping Zoe fold a blouse. "He always worries," Kendra replied. Isabella sighed. "With good reason. Remember last year at Westridge Academy?" The twins fell silent. How could they forget? Despite being at the top of their class, they'd been accused of cheating on their advanced chemistry exam. The evidence? Their identical perfect scores. It took Isabella and Warren threatening legal action before the school acknowledged its mistake and apologized. "We'll be careful, Mom," Zoe promised. "We've got all our documentation. We've checked in online, and we've memorized our rights as passengers." Isabella hugged her daughters tightly. "That's my girls, always prepared." The next morning, as the family SUV pulled up to the airport departure terminal, Warren gave his daughters one last piece of advice. "Remember, you have nothing to prove to anyone. You belong wherever you choose to be." The twins grabbed their luggage, hugged their parents goodbye, and walked confidently into Monroe Regional Airport, ready to begin their journey to Baltimore with a connection in Atlanta. They had no idea that their father's emergency satellite phone would soon become their only lifeline. Zoe and Kendra's first flight from Monroe to Atlanta went smoothly. Seated in first class, Warren insisted his daughters travel comfortably. They spent the hour-long flight reviewing medical terminology and discussing the program ahead. Upon landing at Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, they had a 2-hour layover before their connecting flight to Baltimore. "Gate B23, Kendra said, checking her boarding pass as they navigated the busy terminal. "We should grab something to eat before heading there." The twins found a cafe near their gate and ordered sandwiches. As they ate, Zoe noticed a Continental Airlines employee glancing repeatedly in their direction. She nudged her sister. "Don't look now, but that guy at the counter has been staring at us for the past 5 minutes." Kendra took a casual sip of her water. "Maybe he's wondering how 2 teenagers can afford first-class tickets. Or maybe he's just never seen identical twins before," Zoe suggested, trying to be optimistic. After finishing their meal, the twins headed to the first-class lounge to wait for their flight. At the entrance, a blonde attendant named Heather narrowed her eyes as she scanned their boarding passes. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" she asked, her voice dripping with suspicion. "Yes, we have first-class tickets to Baltimore," Kendra replied politely, pointing to their boarding passes. Heather examined their passes with unusual scrutiny. "I need to see some ID." The twins produced their driver's licenses. Heather looked back and forth between the IDs and the girls several times, as if searching for discrepancies. "These look unusual," she muttered. "Is there a problem?" Zoe asked, maintaining her composure. After a tense moment, Heather reluctantly allowed them to enter. Inside the lounge, the twins found 2 seats away from the other passengers. "That was weird," Kendra whispered. "Should we call Dad?" Zoe asked. Kendra shook her head. "Not yet. That wasn't an emergency. Just ignorance." As boarding time approached, they gathered their belongings and headed to Gate B23. There, they noticed 2 Continental employees in deep conversation, occasionally looking in their direction. One of the employees, whose name tag read Curtis Blackwell, watched them with unconcealed suspicion. Next to him stood Richard Coleman, the gate supervisor, a man with cold eyes and a permanent frown. "Those 2 in the blue blazers," Blackwell said to Coleman, just loud enough for the twins to overhear. "Something's not right about their tickets." Coleman nodded. "I'll alert the flight crew." Moments later, head flight attendant Patricia Hayes arrived at the gate. Blackwell pointed subtly toward the twins, and Hayes's expression hardened. "First-class passengers and those needing special assistance may begin boarding now," Blackwell announced through the microphone. Several white passengers moved forward, presented their boarding passes, and proceeded down the jetway. When the twins approached, Blackwell's demeanor changed instantly. "Just a moment," he said, holding up his hand to stop them. "There seems to be an issue with your reservation." The twins exchanged worried glances. The first signs of trouble were unmistakable, and what had begun as a dream journey was about to turn into their worst nightmare. "Boarding passes, please," Curtis Blackwell said, his tone noticeably different from the friendly voice he'd used with previous passengers. Zoe handed over their boarding passes and IDs. "Is there a problem?" Blackwell scrutinized their documentation, frowning as he tapped aggressively at his computer terminal. "Yes, there's definitely a problem. I need you to step aside while I verify these." The twins moved to the side as instructed, watching as other passengers continued boarding without issue. Richard Coleman approached, taking the boarding passes from Blackwell. "Where did you get these tickets?" Coleman demanded without introduction. "Our father purchased them through the Continental website," Kendra explained calmly. "We checked in online yesterday and got our boarding passes this morning." Coleman's eyes narrowed. "And how exactly did you pay for first-class tickets?" "Our father used his credit card," Zoe replied. "Is there something wrong with our tickets?" By now, a small crowd had gathered, with several passengers openly staring and a few recording the interaction on their phones. "These don't appear to be legitimate boarding passes," Blackwell announced loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear. Kendra took a deep breath. "We have the confirmation email and receipt. Would you like to see those as well?" Coleman ignored her offer. "The system shows these seats were purchased with a potentially fraudulent credit card." "That's impossible," Zoe insisted, pulling out her phone. "I can show you the confirmation from your airline." As she scrolled through her email, Patricia Hayes joined the growing confrontation, positioning herself between the twins and the jetway. "These young ladies claim they have first-class tickets," Blackwell explained to Hayes, emphasizing the word claim with obvious skepticism. Hayes looked the girls up and down, taking in their designer jeans and cashmere sweaters. "And how exactly did you afford those seats? First class to Baltimore isn't cheap." "Our father is Warren Mitchell," Kendra stated, trying to keep her voice steady. "He's the CEO of Mitchellcom. He purchased these tickets legally." A white passenger nearby scoffed audibly. "Sure he is, honey." Another muttered, "They probably stole someone's credit card." The situation was escalating rapidly. Two security officers, Travis Warner and Brett Stevens, approached from across the terminal. Warner's hand rested casually on his holstered taser. "What's going on here?" Warner asked Coleman. "Possible boarding pass fraud," Coleman replied. "Need to check their bags, too." Without asking permission, Stevens grabbed Zoe's carry-on bag and began rifling through it on a nearby counter, pulling out clothes and personal items for all to see. "This is completely unnecessary," Zoe protested, fighting to keep her voice level. "Our tickets are valid. We have every right to board this flight." "Airport security doesn't answer to you," Stevens snapped, continuing his invasive search. Warner turned to Kendra. "Empty your pockets and open your backpack." The public humiliation was overwhelming. Passengers continued to board, many slowing to watch the spectacle. Some shook their heads in disgust, not at the treatment the twins were receiving, but at the twins themselves. Have you ever witnessed discrimination that made your blood boil? Comment number 1, if you believe the airline staff was wrong from the start, or number 2, if you think they were just doing their job. Don't forget to hit that like button if you're outraged by what happened to these young women. How would you feel being publicly humiliated like this? What would you do if you were in Zoe and Kendra's situation? As the twins were about to discover, things were about to get much worse before they got better. Despite providing all requested documentation, boarding passes, IDs, confirmation emails, and even their acceptance letters to the Johns Hopkins program, the airline staff remained unmoved. "I'm sorry, but you won't be boarding this flight," Blackwell finally declared. "On what grounds?" Kendra demanded, her voice finally betraying her anger. "Security concerns," Coleman stated flatly, "and potential fraud investigation." The twins stood in stunned silence as their fellow passengers disappeared down the jetway. The door to the plane closed with a definitive thud, sealing them off from their dreams and plans. "Please come with us," Warner instructed, gesturing toward a non-public area of the terminal. As they were led away, Zoe whispered to her sister, "I think it's time to call Dad." Kendra nodded imperceptibly. The situation had officially become an emergency. Security officers Warner and Stevens escorted the twins to a small windowless room marked Airport Security in the administrative section of the terminal. The sterile space contained only a metal table, 4 chairs, and a surveillance camera in the corner. The door closed behind them with an ominous click. "Sit," Warner commanded, pointing to 2 chairs on one side of the table. The twins complied, maintaining their composure despite their racing hearts. Stevens stood by the door while Warner positioned himself across the table. "We need your phones and IDs," Warner demanded, extending his hand. "May I ask why?" Zoe inquired, clutching her purse. "Standard procedure for fraud investigation," Warner replied curtly. "Phones, now!" Reluctantly, the twins surrendered their smartphones. Kendra discreetly pressed her emergency contact button before handing hers over. It wouldn't help. The call would go to her father's regular cell phone, which would likely go unanswered while he was presenting at his conference. "Your bags will be searched thoroughly," Stevens informed them from the doorway. "If we find evidence of theft or fraud, The consequences will be serious. Warner leaned forward, his expression severe. Where did you really get those tickets? As we explained repeatedly, our father purchased them legally through your website, Kendra responded, maintaining eye contact. And who is your father again? The CEO of some company? Warner's tone was mockingly incredulous. Warren Mitchell, CEO of Mitchellcom, Zoe affirmed. Warner exchanged a knowing look with Stevens. Right, and I'm Jeff Bezos. The officers left the room, taking the twins' phones, IDs, and bags with them. As soon as the door closed, Kendra turned to her sister. The satellite phone, she whispered. It's in my jacket lining. Their father had insisted on the concealed pocket after a business associate's daughter had been robbed while traveling abroad. At the time, the twins thought it was overprotective. Now, they were immensely grateful. Kendra carefully reached into the hidden pocket and extracted the sleek satellite device. Her hands trembled slightly as she pressed the single button on its side, the emergency protocol their father had established. Do you remember how to use it? Zoe asked anxiously. Press once for the distress signal, twice to open the direct line, Kendra recited, pressing the button a second time. The phone vibrated silently, indicating the connection was being established. Meanwhile, in Chicago, Warren Mitchell stood at a podium before 500 telecommunications executives, midway through his keynote address at the National Telecommunications Conference. His presentation on the future of secure global communications was being live-streamed to industry professionals worldwide. The key to tomorrow's networks isn't just speed, but security and reliability, Warren explained, advancing to his next slide. At Mitchellcom, we've developed protocols that ensure a discreet vibration from his pocket interrupted his train of thought. Warren paused, recognizing the distinct pattern. Only one device could bypass his Do Not Disturb settings. The emergency satellite phone he'd given his daughters. Without hesitation, Warren addressed the audience. Please excuse me. A family emergency requires my immediate attention. Confusion rippled through the crowd as Warren stepped away from the podium, already dialing his chief of staff, Dominic Watson. Dominic, the girls triggered the emergency protocol. Get the team ready, he instructed, walking briskly toward the exit. Yes, sir. The jet? Dominic responded instantly. Fueled and waiting. And get Alexandra on standby for legal. Warren accepted the incoming call from the satellite phone, his heart pounding. Zoe? Kendra? What's happening? He asked, his voice tight with concern. Dad, Kendra whispered, her composure finally cracking. We're being detained at Atlanta Airport. They wouldn't let us board. They took our phones, our IDs, everything. Are you safe? Has anyone physically harmed you? Warren demanded, already signaling his driver. We're physically fine, but they're accusing us of fraud. They're searching our bags, and they separated us from our belongings. They're treating us like criminals, Dad. Warren's jaw clenched. Tell me exactly what happened, from the beginning. As Kendra recounted the events in hushed tones, Warren entered his waiting car. I'm on my way, he assured them. Stay calm. Answer their questions honestly, but say no more than necessary. Do not sign anything. I'm bringing Alexandra Foster with me. They don't believe you're our father, Zoe added, now holding the phone. They laughed when we told them. They won't be laughing for long, Warren replied, his voice dangerously quiet. I need to make some calls. Keep this line open but hidden. I'll check in every 10 minutes. As the car sped toward the private airfield, Warren's fingers flew across his phone, sending messages to his executive team, legal department, and several board members of Continental Airlines with whom he had connections. Within minutes, Dominic had assembled a crisis team at Mitchellcom headquarters. Alexandra Foster, the company's formidable lead counsel, was already reviewing passenger rights regulations and discrimination precedents. Back in the detention room, the twins concealed the satellite phone as the door opened. Warner returned with a female officer named Reynolds. We're going to question you separately, Warner announced. Mitchell, come with Officer Reynolds. Which one of us? The twins asked simultaneously. Warner pointed to Kendra. You. As Kendra was led to another room, Zoe remained behind, the satellite phone hidden in her lap beneath the table. She knew their father was mobilizing every resource at his disposal, but here, in this small room, she had never felt more vulnerable or more aware of how quickly privilege could be stripped away by prejudice. Warren Mitchell terminated his keynote speech with a terse apology, something he'd never done in his 25-year career. As murmurs rippled through the audience of telecommunications executives, he was already striding toward the exit, phone pressed to his ear. "Dominic, I need everything we have on Continental Airlines," Warren instructed his chief of staff. "Board members, major shareholders, outstanding contracts, and get me CEO Frederick Pearson's direct number." "On it, sir," Dominic replied. "The jet is ready at Midway. ETA to Atlanta is approximately 90 minutes. Warren's driver navigated Chicago traffic with practiced urgency while Warren established a mobile command center from the back seat. Alexandra Foster, Mitchell-Comm's chief legal counsel, joined the call. "Alexandra, my daughters are being detained at Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson on suspicion of fraud. They've been denied boarding, separated from their belongings, and are being interrogated without legal representation or parental consent. They're minors." "That's multiple violations," Alexandra responded immediately. "I need names, badge numbers, and a timeline." "Kendra's on the other line providing details. I'm connecting you now." As Warren merged the calls, social media was already buzzing. Several passengers had recorded the twins' confrontation at the gate, and the videos were spreading rapidly across platforms. At Travel Alert, 2 black teenagers denied boarding on #Continental Airlines despite valid tickets. Staff accused them of fraud. #racial profiling at Witness ATL. Just watch 2 young black girls humiliated and detained at ATL airport. Their crime? Flying first class while black. At Continental Racism, Warren dialed Frederick Pearson's number. After 3 rings, Continental's CEO answered. "Warren Mitchell," Pearson said, his voice casual. "This is unexpected. Frederick, your staff at Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson have detained my 17-year-old daughters, denied them boarding despite valid tickets, confiscated their property, and are currently interrogating them without legal representation. I want this resolved now." There was a pause before Pearson responded. "I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding. Our staff are trained professionals." "Stop," Warren interrupted. "This isn't a misunderstanding. It's racial profiling, and it's being documented as we speak. Videos are already viral. These situations are complex, Warren. I'll have someone look into it, but these security protocols—" "Don't talk to me about protocols," Warren snapped. "Your gate agent publicly accused my daughters of fraud because he couldn't believe 2 black teenagers could afford first-class tickets. Your security officers separated them from their belongings and are interrogating them in isolation. They're minors, Frederick. I understand you're upset, but no, you clearly don't understand. Let me be perfectly clear. I'm currently en route to Atlanta. I expect my daughters to be released immediately with all their belongings and with a formal apology from your staff. Otherwise, the full legal and public relations weight of Mitchell-Comm will be focused on Continental Airlines by this evening." Warren ended the call before Pearson could respond. As his car pulled up to the private airfield, he checked social media again. The hashtag #Continental Racism was trending nationally, with over 50,000 mentions in the past 30 minutes. Back at the airport, the twins remained separated. Kendra sat across from Officer Reynolds in a small interrogation room. "Let's go through this again," Reynolds said, her tone weary. "How did you get these tickets?" "As I've explained 5 times now, my father purchased them through Continental's website using his American Express card," Kendra replied evenly. Reynolds sighed. "And your father is—" "Warren Mitchell, CEO of Mitchell-Comm." The door opened, and Warner entered with a concerned expression. He whispered something to Reynolds, whose eyes widened. "Is something wrong?" Kendra asked, noticing their changed demeanor. Warner cleared his throat. "We've received information about your case. You're free to go. Your sister is waiting outside." Kendra remained seated. "What about our phones, our IDs, our belongings?" "Being processed for return," Reynolds responded, suddenly formal. "Someone will escort you to collect them." As Kendra was led back to the main terminal, she spotted Zoe waiting with a Continental customer service representative who appeared extremely nervous. "Miss Mitchell, on behalf of Continental Airlines, I want to express our sincere apologies for the misunderstanding," the representative stammered. "Misunderstanding?" Zoe repeated incredulously. "We were publicly humiliated, detained, and interrogated because your staff didn't believe black teenagers could fly first class." The representative paled. Your father has been in contact with our corporate office. We're arranging alternate transportation to Baltimore immediately." "We're not going anywhere until our father arrives," Kendra stated firmly. Outside the airport, a media presence was forming. Local news vans had arrived, and reporters were gathering in the arrival area, alerted by the viral social media posts. Warren's private jet touched down in Atlanta 90 minutes after leaving Chicago. As he deplaned with Alexandra Foster and Dominic Watson, his phone rang with an update from Continental's board chairman, Harold Davidson. "Warren, I've just been briefed on the situation. I want to personally assure you that Continental Airlines does not condone racial discrimination in any form." "Save it, Harold," Warren interrupted. "Your staff's actions speak louder than your damage control. I'll be at the terminal in 20 minutes. I expect to see you there." Warren's black SUV sped toward the terminal. Inside, he reviewed the legal documentation Alexandra had prepared, including citations of federal aviation regulations, civil rights statutes, and precedents for discrimination cases against airlines. When Warren entered the terminal, the atmosphere shifted immediately. Security personnel straightened, airline staff whispered urgently into radios, and passengers turned to watch the purposeful stride of the telecommunications mogul and his entourage. At the Continental customer service desk, the twins sat quietly, still without their belongings. When they spotted their father, both girls rose immediately, their carefully maintained composure finally cracking as they rushed toward him. Warren embraced his daughters tightly, his professional demeanor momentarily set aside. "Are you all right?" he asked, examining their faces with concern. "We're okay," Zoe assured him, though her voice trembled slightly. Warren turned to face the Continental representatives who had gathered nearby, including Richard Coleman and Curtis Blackwell, both looking significantly less confident than they had earlier. "Which one of you is responsible for detaining my daughters?" Warren demanded. Coleman stepped forward reluctantly. "Sir, there was a security protocol. A protocol that applies exclusively to black passengers?" Alexandra Foster interjected, her legal pad already filled with notes. "Of course not," Coleman protested. "There were irregularities in the reservation that—" "What irregularities?" Warren challenged. "The first-class tickets I purchased personally, the confirmation emails, the online check-in, or was the irregularity simply that you couldn't believe two young black women belonged in first class?" By now, several news cameras were capturing the confrontation. Frederick Pearson had also arrived, accompanied by Continental's legal counsel. "Warren," Pearson began, extending his hand, which Warren pointedly ignored. "Let's discuss this privately." "There's nothing to discuss, Frederick. My daughters were profiled, humiliated, and detained illegally. This isn't going away with a private conversation and an NDA." As if to emphasize his point, Warren gestured toward the gathering media. "This is about accountability, and it starts with the immediate termination of everyone involved in this incident." Pearson's face hardened. "That's not going to happen, Warren. We have protocols and internal review processes." Warren stepped closer to Pearson, his voice low but intense. "Then you should know that Mitchellcom provides the backbone for Continental's entire reservation system, in-flight Wi-Fi, and gate management software. Our contract comes up for renewal next week." The color drained from Pearson's face as the implications became clear. This wasn't just about bad publicity. It was about Continental's operational infrastructure. "You wouldn't," Pearson whispered. Warren's expression remained impassive. "Try me." By evening, the incident had exploded across all media platforms. The hashtag #Continental Racism had accumulated over 2 million mentions, and the videos of Zoe and Kendra being denied boarding had been viewed collectively more than 15 million times. Major news networks ran breaking coverage with headlines like "Black Teenagers Denied Boarding, Discrimination in the Skies," and "CEO Father Confronts Airline After Daughters Detained." CNN's airport monitors displayed live footage of the unfolding drama, creating the surreal situation where Continental employees could watch their company's reputation crumbling in real time as they worked. At Black Travelers Matter, this is why we created our group. Black travelers face this every day. #Continental Racism, Flying. While Black at Civil Rights. Watch, Continental Airlines has a documented history of racial incidents. This isn't isolated. #Continental Racism at Wall Street Daily. Conti shares down 8% in after-hours trading as discrimination incident goes viral. Continental racism inside a private conference room at the Atlanta airport. Warren Mitchell sat with his daughters, Alexandra Foster and Dominic Watson, monitoring the escalating situation. Zoe and Kendra had finally received their belongings back, though their phones had been drained of battery in what appeared to be an attempt to search their contents. "The damage control is already failing," Dominic noted, scrolling through his tablet. Continental's initial statement claimed it was a misunderstanding based on security protocols, but social media isn't buying it. Alexandra looked up from her legal documents. "We've received calls from 3 civil rights organizations offering support, and the Department of Transportation has opened a preliminary inquiry." Warren turned to his daughters. "How are you holding up?" "Better now that you're here," Kendra replied. "But we missed our orientation at Johns Hopkins." "I called the program director," Warren assured her. "They're holding your spots and sending a car to bring you directly to campus once we're finished here." Zoe hesitated before asking, "Dad, what's going to happen to Continental?" Warren's expression hardened. "That depends entirely on how they respond in the next few hours." Outside the conference room, reporters had gathered in the main terminal. Several passengers who had witnessed the incident gave interviews, providing damning accounts of the airline staff's behavior. "They treated those girls like criminals," one witness told a Fox News reporter, "checking their IDs over and over, searching their bags in front of everyone. I've flown Continental for 20 years and never seen anything like it." Another passenger added, "I was right behind them in line. The difference in how the gate agent spoke to me versus those young ladies was night and day. It was obviously racial profiling." Continental's stock continued its downward spiral as investors recognized the potential financial impact. Financial news channels ran segments analyzing the potential costs of boycotts, lawsuits, and federal investigations. Social media users began sharing their own experiences with Continental, creating a damning pattern of discriminatory incidents that had previously gone unaddressed. At Travel Writer. In 2022, Continental flight attendant asked my Black colleague to move from first class because someone must have made a mistake. No such request made to white passengers. At Continental Racism at Professor Jones. Continental gate agent demanded I show receipt for my ticket while letting white passengers board with just a boarding pass. Happens every time I fly with them. #Continental. Racism. Competing airlines quickly capitalized on Continental's crisis. Delta Airlines issued a statement reaffirming their commitment to inclusive travel experiences, while United offered to honor Continental tickets for any passengers who wished to switch carriers. American Airlines went further, announcing they would send a private corporate jet to transport the Mitchell twins to Baltimore, a gesture that garnered positive media attention and contrasted sharply with Continental's handling of the situation. When news of American's offer reached Continental's executive team, panic set in. Frederick Pearson called an emergency virtual board meeting from a private office at the Atlanta airport. "This is spiraling out of control," Pearson told the assembled board members on the video conference. "Mitchell is threatening our operational infrastructure. American is poaching our customers with publicity stunts, and our stock is in free fall. Harold Davidson, the board chairman, appeared grave on the screen. Frederick, this has become an existential crisis. What exactly is Warren Mitchell demanding? Termination of all staff involved, a complete overhaul of our customer service training, and a substantial contribution to a racial justice organization of his choosing, Pearson replied. It's completely unreasonable. Is it? Challenged board member Diane Rodriguez. Have you seen the videos? Our staff humiliated and detained two 17-year-old girls because they didn't think black teenagers could afford first-class tickets. This isn't just bad PR, it's morally indefensible. Davidson nodded slowly. And what's this about Mitchell-Com's contract? Pearson shifted uncomfortably. Mitchell's company provides our reservation system infrastructure and in-flight connectivity. The contract renews next week. And if they don't renew? Another board member asked. Our entire digital infrastructure would go offline, Pearson admitted. We'd have to implement a backup system, which would take at least 72 hours, during which we couldn't process new reservations or operate normally. The board fell silent as the gravity of the situation sank in. Meet his demands, Davidson finally instructed. All of them. Pearson bristled. We can't just capitulate to every threat. This isn't a negotiation, Frederick, Davidson interrupted. Fix this, now. Have you ever seen a company's poor decision spiral completely out of control? Comment number 1 if you think Continental should have immediately fired everyone involved. Or number 2 if you think they should have fought back against Warren's demands. And don't forget to hit that like button if you're stunned by how quickly this situation escalated. What would you do if you were in Continental's position? How far would you go to stand up for your children if they faced discrimination? As this story continues, you'll see just how powerful a determined parent can be when fighting for justice. Meanwhile, Warren and his daughters were giving their first media interview to a national news network. The twins, composed and articulate, recounted their experience while Warren explained the broader implications. This isn't about my daughters being inconvenienced, Warren stated firmly. This is about a systemic problem that affects black travelers every day. The difference is that most don't have the resources to fight back as visibly. The interview went viral within minutes, adding fuel to the already raging fire of public opinion against Continental Airlines. As pressure mounted from all sides, Pearson requested a meeting with Warren, finally ready to negotiate seriously. But Warren Mitchell was done negotiating. He had already set in motion a plan that would force Continental's hand in a way they never anticipated. The next morning, Continental Airlines' executive boardroom was filled with tension. On one side sat Frederick Pearson and his executive team, along with the company's legal counsel. On the other, Warren Mitchell, Alexandra Foster, and Dominic Watson faced them with resolute expressions. Notable by their absence were Zoe and Kendra, who had finally departed for Baltimore on a private jet provided by a competing airline, a fact that Continental's PR team was still attempting to downplay. Let's cut to the chase, Harold Davidson began, joining remotely on the large screen at the head of the table. This situation has escalated beyond what any of us anticipated. We're here to find a resolution. Warren leaned forward. I outlined my requirements yesterday. Has your position changed since then? Pearson cleared his throat. We've reviewed your demands, Warren. While we acknowledge that the situation was poorly handled, some of your requirements are simply untenable. Which requirements specifically? Alexandra Foster asked, her pen poised above her legal pad. Terminating all staff involved would violate our union agreements, Pearson explained. And the financial contribution you're suggesting is disproportionate to the incident. Warren's expression remained impassive. So, your position is that publicly humiliating and detaining two minors based on racial profiling doesn't warrant termination? We're not saying that, Continental's legal counsel interjected. But there are protocols. I don't want to hear about protocols, Warren interrupted. I want accountability. Davidson shifted uncomfortably on the video screen. Warren, we're prepared to offer a significant settlement to your daughters, along with a public apology and disciplinary action for the staff involved. This isn't about money. Warren replied coldly. My daughters don't need Continental's money. What they needed was to be treated with dignity and respect, which your organization failed to provide. Pearson spread his hands in a placating gesture. We understand your frustration, but these incidents, regrettable as they are, happen across the industry. It's not unique to Continental. That's your defense? Everyone does it? Warren's voice remained measured, but his eyes flashed with anger. Let me be clear. I'm not here as a grieving parent seeking compensation. I'm here as the CEO of Mitchell.com, your technology provider, informing you that your response to this incident will determine our future business relationship. The room fell silent as the executives processed the thinly veiled threat. Mitchell.com's technology underpinned Continental's entire digital infrastructure, from reservation systems to in-flight entertainment to gate management software. That sounds dangerously close to coercion, Continental's legal counsel observed. Alexandra Foster smiled thinly. It's not coercion to exercise contractual rights. Our agreement includes a morality clause that allows for termination if Continental engages in conduct that could reasonably damage Mitchell.com's reputation through association. She slid a document across the table. I've highlighted the relevant sections for your convenience. Pearson glanced at the document, his face paling slightly. You can't seriously be threatening to terminate our technology contract over this incident. I'm not threatening anything, Warren replied evenly. I'm informing you of the consequences of your choices. You have 3 options. First, meet all my requirements, including staff terminations and policy changes. Second, offer an alternative that demonstrates genuine accountability. Or third, continue to minimize and deflect, in which case Mitchell.com will exercise its contractual rights. Davidson leaned toward his camera. Warren, be reasonable. Pulling your technology would effectively ground our entire fleet. That's hundreds of thousands of passengers stranded, millions in losses. I'm well aware, Warren acknowledged. Which is why I expect you to make the right decision. Pearson's face flushed with anger. This is extortion. No, Warren corrected. This is leverage. The same kind your gate agents exercised when they decided my daughters didn't belong on your plane. He stood, gathering his documents. You have until 5 p.m. today to provide your response. After that, Mitchell.com will proceed accordingly. As Warren's team exited the boardroom, the Continental executives erupted into urgent discussion. Pearson turned to Davidson's video feed. He's bluffing, Pearson insisted. He can't just shut down a major airline over a single incident involving his children. The legal and regulatory backlash would be enormous. Davidson looked less certain. Can we implement our backup systems as a precaution? The technology officer shook his head. The backup is designed for maintenance periods, not full operations. We'd need at least 72 hours to transition, and even then, it would be at reduced capacity. What about our contract with Mitchell.com? Davidson asked. Do they actually have the right to terminate? The legal counsel examined the document Alexandra had provided. Unfortunately, yes. The morality clause is broadly worded, and given the public nature of this incident and the clear documentation of racial profiling by our staff, they have grounds to exercise it. Pearson slammed his hand on the table. This is ridiculous. We can't allow ourselves to be bullied by one angry parent, CEO or not. This isn't just one angry parent, Davidson reminded him. This is a major technology provider responding to a legitimate grievance that has gone viral. The public is overwhelmingly against us. Throughout the day, Continental's crisis management team monitored the ongoing fallout. Their stock had dropped another 7% since market opening. Boycott pledges were spreading across social media. Civil rights organizations had organized protests at major Continental hubs. At 4:30 p.m., Pearson convened a final meeting to formulate their response. After heated debate, he drafted a statement that acknowledged serious lapses in customer service and promised an internal investigation, along with additional diversity training for all customer-facing staff. The statement included a formal apology to the Mitchell family but stopped short of announcing any terminations or specific policy changes. It was, in Continental's view, A reasonable compromise that protected their staff while acknowledging the seriousness of the incident. At precisely 5 p.m., Continental's communications team released the statement to the media and sent a copy directly to Warren Mitchell. The response from Mitchell.com came just 15 minutes later, in the form of a terse email from Warren to Pearson, Davidson, and the entire Continental board. Your response is inadequate. Mitchell.com will be exercising its contractual rights effective immediately. Good luck with your backup systems. Pearson read the email twice, convinced it was a bluff. He wouldn't actually do it, he assured his team. 30 minutes later, as the first evening flights prepared for departure, Continental's gate agents made a disturbing discovery. Their reservation systems were no longer responding. System status critical, connection to Mitchell.com servers lost. The alert flashed across monitors throughout Continental's operations centers nationwide. At Chicago O'Hare, gate agents stared helplessly at frozen screens. In Dallas, flight crews couldn't access passenger manifests. At JFK, the baggage system ground to a halt. Inside Continental's Atlanta Operations Center, chaos erupted as technicians scrambled to implement backup protocols. The center's director, Malcolm Reed, was on the phone with Frederick Pearson. It's not just the reservation system, Reed explained, his voice tight with stress. It's everything: gate management, crew scheduling, baggage tracking, even the in-flight entertainment and Wi-Fi. The entire Mitchell.com infrastructure is offline. How long until the backup systems are operational? Pearson demanded. Reed hesitated. Minimum 72 hours for basic functionality. Full operations. A week, maybe more. Unacceptable, Pearson snapped. We have over 300 flights currently in the air and another 200 scheduled to depart in the next 3 hours. The flights in the air are fine. They've already downloaded their flight plans and passenger information. But for new departures, we're essentially blind. We can't process new bookings, check in passengers, or track baggage without manual workarounds. Pearson ended the call and summoned his crisis team. The situation was dire. Continental was effectively grounded until they could restore their technological infrastructure. The financial impact would be catastrophic. Tens of millions in losses per day. Not to mention the incalculable damage to their reputation. Get Mitchell back on the phone, Pearson instructed his assistant. Tell him we're willing to negotiate. The call went straight to voicemail. Across town, Warren Mitchell sat in his hotel suite, watching the situation unfold on multiple news channels. Dominic Watson provided updates from Mitchell.com's technical team, who were monitoring Continental systems remotely. They're attempting to implement their backup protocols, Dominic reported. But they're discovering that the backups don't have the capacity to handle their full operation. Warren nodded, unsurprised. And legally? Alexandra Foster looked up from her laptop. We're on solid ground. The contract explicitly allows for service termination under the morality clause with a standard 3-day notice period. However, there's an emergency provision that permits immediate termination in cases of serious reputational harm, which this clearly qualifies as, Warren concluded. His phone rang, Pearson's third attempt to reach him in the past hour. This time, Warren accepted the call, putting it on speaker. Warren, this has gone too far, Pearson began, his voice strained. You've made your point. Now you're affecting hundreds of thousands of innocent travelers. No, Frederick, Warren corrected. Your failure to properly address racial discrimination in your organization is affecting those travelers. I'm simply exercising my contractual rights. We released a statement. A statement isn't action, Warren interrupted. You offered words instead of accountability. That's not good enough. Pearson's tone shifted from confrontational to pleading. Tell me what you want and we'll do it. Just turn the systems back on. You know what I want. It hasn't changed. Termination of all staff involved in the incident. A complete overhaul of your customer service training with emphasis on racial bias. A substantial contribution to a racial justice organization. And a public acknowledgement that this was racial profiling, not a misunderstanding or service lapse. The board is meeting in 30 minutes, Pearson said. I'll present your terms. Warren ended the call without another word. On television, images showed crowded continental terminals across the country as passengers learned their flights had been indefinitely delayed. The ticker at the bottom of the screen reported that Continental's stock had been temporarily halted from trading after dropping 15%. Meanwhile, Zoe and Kendra had finally arrived at Johns Hopkins. Despite the program director's understanding, they had missed the first day of orientation. As they settled into their dormitory, their phones buzzed constantly with notifications. Friends sharing news stories about their ordeal, classmates expressing support, strangers sending messages of solidarity. "Do you think Dad went too far?" Zoe asked her sister quietly. Kendra considered the question. "Remember what he always tells us? Power unused is power wasted. He has the power to force real change, not just for us, but for everyone who looks like us and doesn't have a CEO father." Back in Atlanta, Continental's board convened an emergency session. The atmosphere was tense as Pearson presented the situation. "We have no choice," he concluded. "Mitchell has us over a barrel. Without the Mitchell-Com infrastructure, we're effectively out of business." Board member Diane Rodriguez spoke first. "Let's be clear. We're in this position because our staff racially profiled 2 teenagers, then doubled down when challenged. This isn't Mitchell's fault. It's ours." "The terms are extreme," another board member protested. "Are they?" Davidson challenged. "Firing staff who violated our own policies? Training that should have been implemented years ago? A financial contribution that amounts to a rounding error on our annual budget? The only thing extreme was our response to this incident." After an hour of heated debate, the board took a vote. The result was unanimous. Continental would meet all of Warren Mitchell's demands, effective immediately. But there was one additional decision. Frederick Pearson, whose mishandling of the crisis had exacerbated the situation, would be asked to resign. By evening, Continental issued a new statement acknowledging that racial profiling had occurred, announcing the termination of all staff involved, committing to a comprehensive overhaul of their training protocols, and pledging $5 million to the National Coalition for Racial Justice in Aviation. The statement concluded with an announcement that Chief Operations Officer Diane Rodriguez would serve as interim CEO while the board conducted a search for new leadership. Within an hour of the statement's release, Mitchell-Com's servers reconnected to Continental's systems. Flights resumed the following morning, but the airline's reputation had suffered a blow from which it would take years to recover. As news of Continental's capitulation spread, Zoe and Kendra received a video call from their father. "It's done," Warren told them simply. "They've agreed to everything." "Thanks, Dad," Kendra said, her eyes glistening with tears. "Not just for us, but for everyone else who might have faced the same treatment." Warren nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Sometimes justice requires more than just speaking truth to power. Sometimes it requires becoming the power. 3 months later, Zoe and Kendra Mitchell stood in the gleaming lobby of Continental Airlines headquarters in Dallas. Above them, a newly installed plaque read, "The Mitchell Initiative for Inclusive Travel, ensuring dignity and respect for all passengers." The twins had just completed their presentation to Continental's board of directors on the progress of the anti-discrimination program established in the wake of their ordeal. Now, college freshmen at Johns Hopkins, they had become unlikely consultants to the airline industry on matters of diversity and inclusion. "Your insights have been invaluable," Diane Rodriguez, now the permanent CEO of Continental, told them as she escorted them through the building. "Our customer satisfaction scores among minority passengers have increased 30% since implementing your recommendations." The transformation of Continental Airlines over the past 3 months had been remarkable. Every employee, from executives to baggage handlers, had undergone comprehensive anti-bias training developed in partnership with civil rights organizations. The company had established an external oversight committee to review complaints of discrimination and ensure transparent resolution. Curtis Blackwell, Richard Coleman, Patricia Hayes, and the security officers involved in the twins' detention had all been terminated. Several faced civil lawsuits for their actions, with court dates set for the following year. Most significantly, Continental had established the Mitchell Scholarship for Minority Excellence in Medicine, which would provide full medical school tuition for 5 black students annually, a direct response to the twins' medical aspirations that had been temporarily derailed by the incident. "Your father mentioned you might be interested in internships with our corporate responsibility department next summer," Rodriguez said as they reached the executive floor. Zoe smiled. "We're considering it. It would be powerful to help transform the company from within." Meanwhile, in Chicago, Warren Mitchell was finalizing a new industry-wide initiative. Following Continental's very public reckoning, other airlines had approached Mitchell.com about implementing similar anti-discrimination protocols. Warren had seized the opportunity to create standardized procedures and training across the entire aviation sector. The Mitchell Standards for Equitable Air Travel would soon be adopted by 9 major carriers, with more expected to follow. The standards included anonymous testing of airline procedures using passengers of different races, regular bias training for all staff, and transparent reporting of discrimination complaints. Business schools across the country had already begun developing case studies on what was now called the Continental Correction, examining how a single incident of discrimination had triggered a company-wide transformation and industry-wide reforms. The twins' experience had become a powerful teaching tool on both the persistence of racial bias and the potential for meaningful corporate accountability. Their poised response to discrimination, combined with their father's strategic use of leverage, provided a blueprint for turning individual injustice into systemic change. As the fall semester progressed at Johns Hopkins, Zoe and Kendra found their academic focus sharpened by their experience. Their interest in medicine remained strong, but they had added courses in health equity and medical ethics, recognizing how their future practices might address disparities in healthcare. "Dr. Rivera was impressed by your term paper on racial disparities in pain management," Kendra told her sister as they studied in their dorm room one evening. Zoe nodded, looking up from her anatomy textbook. "It's all connected, isn't it? Whether it's being denied boarding on a plane or being denied appropriate medical care, the underlying biases are the same." Their phones buzzed simultaneously with a news alert. Continental Airlines had just announced its most diverse executive team in company history, with people of color now representing 40% of leadership positions. "Dad's strategy worked better than anyone could have imagined," Kendra observed. "He didn't just force them to apologize, he changed the entire corporate culture." Warren had explained his approach to the twins after the resolution. Continental needed more than punishment. They needed transformation. And sometimes, transformation requires crisis. The following weekend, the Mitchell family gathered for their monthly dinner. Isabella, fresh from performing a groundbreaking neurosurgical procedure, listened intently as her daughters described their ongoing work with Continental. "I'm proud of how you've channeled this experience," she told them. "You could have just accepted the apology and moved on, but you chose to create lasting change." Warren smiled at his wife and daughters. "The most powerful response to discrimination isn't just overcoming it, it's dismantling the systems that enable it." 2 weeks later, Zoe and Kendra prepared for their Thanksgiving trip home. As a symbolic gesture, they had booked their flights on Continental Airlines, their first time flying with the carrier since the incident. At Baltimore-Washington International Airport, they approached the Continental check-in counter with a mixture of apprehension and curiosity. Would anything be different? The agent greeted them warmly, efficiently processed their first-class tickets, and directed them to the priority security line without a second glance. At the gate, the boarding process proceeded smoothly, with no extra scrutiny or suspicion. As they settled into their seats, the lead flight attendant recognized them from the diversity training videos that had become mandatory viewing for all Continental staff. "Miss Mitchell and Miss Mitchell," he said quietly. "On behalf of everyone at Continental, I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to earn back your trust. Your experience has changed how we operate as a company, and we're better for it." The twins exchanged glances, recognizing the sincerity in his words. What had begun as a traumatic experience had catalyzed genuine transformation, not just in policies and procedures, but in attitudes and awareness. As the plane accelerated down the runway, Kendra reached for her sister's hand. "Do you think this would have happened without Dad's intervention?" she asked softly. Zoe considered the question. "Probably not this quickly or completely, but that's the point, isn't it? We can't all have CEO parents with leverage over major corporations. The system shouldn't require that kind of power to ensure basic dignity and respect." "Which is why the Mitchell standards are so important," Kendra concluded. "They extend the protection to everyone, not just those with connections." That evening, as the Mitchell family gathered around their dining table, Warren raised his glass in a toast. "To my remarkable daughters," he said proudly, "who turned humiliation into transformation and personal injury into public good." Isabella added, "And to the power of standing up for what's right, even when, especially when, it's difficult." The twins shared a smile, recognizing that their ordeal had become something much larger than themselves. Enforcing accountability from a powerful corporation, they had helped create a blueprint for change that would benefit countless travelers who would never know their names. This powerful story reminds us that discrimination persists even in our modern society, affecting people regardless of their education, status, or wealth. The twins' experience highlights how racial bias can manifest suddenly, turning ordinary situations into humiliating ordeals. While most victims lack a CEO parent with corporate leverage, the story teaches us several universal lessons. First, documentation matters. The videos taken by bystanders created undeniable evidence that helped hold Continental accountable. Second, systemic change requires both outside pressure and internal transformation. Neither alone is sufficient. Third, the most effective response to discrimination isn't just individual resilience, but reshaping the systems that enable bias to flourish. Most importantly, this story demonstrates that accountability shouldn't depend on having connections or resources. True justice means creating standards that protect everyone equally, regardless of who they know or their economic status. When we witness discrimination, speaking up isn't just about that single incident. It's about creating ripples that lead to lasting change. What do you think about the transformation at Continental Airlines? Was it just a PR move? Or do you believe companies can truly change their culture after being forced to confront discrimination? Have you ever witnessed or experienced similar treatment while traveling? Share your story in the comments below. Has this account of courage and consequences inspired you to stand up against discrimination in your own life? If you found value in this story, please hit that like button, subscribe to hear more powerful stories of justice, and share it with someone who needs this message today. Your engagement helps these important stories reach more people who need to hear them. Thank you for watching. And remember, your voice matters in creating a world where everyone is treated with dignity and respect, regardless of the color of their skin.